Every school has that one corner everyone whispers about. Maybe it's the bathroom at the end of the hall. Maybe it's the basement nobody uses. Or maybe it's a classroom that just feels wrong for no reason. For Hannah, her middle school had something much darker. Students called it the locked room. And even though the teachers pretended it didn't matter, the rumor kept growing year after year. Supposedly, at the very end of the old wing, an abandoned section with broken windows and peeling paint, there was a door that led to a room no one was supposed to enter. Most kids joked about it, treating it like a dare. Spend one night in there and you'll see why it's locked. But Hannah wasn't laughing. She'd walked past that corridor plenty of times, and every single time she felt like she was being watched. Her best friend, Mia, was braver, or maybe just more reckless. One afternoon, when the final bell rang and the halls emptied out, Mia leaned over and whispered, "Come on, let's check it out. It's just an old room, right? What's the worst that could happen?" The two of them waited until the school grew quiet. The janitor's cart squeaked somewhere far away. Lockers slammed in the distance, and then silence. They made their way down the forgotten hallway. Dust floated in the air like snowflakes, lit only by the faint orange glow of the setting sun through grimy windows. The walls were cracked, paint chipped into curls, and the lockers looked like they'd been bashed in years ago. Every step echoed like they were walking inside a cave. And then they saw it. The door. Rusty, dented, with a heavy lock that looked decades old. Except something about it didn't fit. Hannah noticed right away that the lock wasn't secured properly. It dangled slightly, like someone had fiddled with it recently. For something supposedly abandoned, it didn't feel abandoned at all. Mia grinned, tugged on the lock, and with a little force, the latch gave way. The door creaked open an inch. The smell hit them first. Not rotten, not moldy, but stale, like a room that had been sealed too long. Hannah's flashlight beam revealed desks stacked strangely against the far wall, almost like someone had tried to build a barricade. There were no posters, no chalkboard, nothing that suggested the space had ever been used as a normal classroom. It was just empty, lifeless, and wrong. Then came the sound, faint at first, barely noticeable, a scratching. Long, slow, deliberate, like nails dragging across a chalkboard. Hannah froze. Mia's smile disappeared. Neither of them wanted to say it, but both of them heard it. The sound seemed to move, circling the room, though the light revealed nothing. The hairs on Hannah's neck stood up. Her stomach dropped. Finally, Hannah whispered, "Do you hear that?" And instantly, the scratching stopped. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It was the kind of silence that feels alive, like the room itself was holding its breath. Hannah and Mia stood there, barely daring to blink. That's when it happened. One of the desks, stacked firmly against the wall, shifted. Slowly, with a loud scrape that echoed across the room. There was no draft, no slope, no explanation. It moved on its own. That was enough. Hannah screamed for Mia to run, and they bolted. Their footsteps thundered down the corridor as the door behind them slammed shut with a metallic clang. They didn't stop until they were outside in the fresh air, hearts pounding, lungs burning. Neither of them said a word on the walk home. Neither wanted to admit what they saw. But here's the part that makes it even stranger. The very next day, when Hannah returned, the door was gone. Literally gone. Instead of a door, there was a wall of bricks, perfectly laid, freshly sealed, as if the school had decided overnight that no one should ever step inside again. Teachers brushed off questions, insisting there had never been a door there. Some even acted confused, like Hannah was making up stories. But Mia had seen it too. They both knew they hadn't imagined it. Years later, Hannah still swears she remembers the sound of that scratching more vividly than anything else. And to this day, students at that school claim if you walk past that bricked-up wall after hours, you'll hear it too. The faint drag of nails waiting, like something behind the bricks hasn't stopped trying to get out.
Okay, this one gives me chills every single time. It's about a man named David who worked as a night custodian at a high school somewhere in the Midwest. On paper, it sounded like the easiest job ever. Clean classrooms, mop the floors, lock the doors, make sure nobody was sneaking in after hours. The kind of gig where your biggest worry is running out of cleaning supplies. But one Friday night, David learned that the empty hallways of a school aren't always as empty as they look. He was sweeping near the gym when he heard it. A basketball. That unmistakable, hollow echo of rubber hitting hardwood. At first, he didn't think much of it. Maybe a student had stayed late. Maybe a coach had forgotten to check out. So he pushed open the double doors to the gym. The second those doors creaked, he froze. The lights were off. The entire court was pitch black, the kind of darkness that swallows your vision and makes you hesitate to take another step. But the sound didn't stop. The ball kept bouncing. Thump, thump, thump. And it wasn't distant, it was close, like it was just a few feet in front of him. David stood there, gripping his broom tighter, waiting for someone to step into view. But when he flicked the lights on, the entire gym lit up in a blinding glare. The bleachers, the hoops, the polished floor, it was all there. But no ball. No student. Just silence. That deep, hollow silence that feels alive. Like the building itself is holding its breath and waiting for you to slip. Trying to shake it off, David went back to his routine. Hours passed. The night dragged on. Until close to midnight, he moved into the science wing. That's when he heard the next sound. Locker slamming. Not just one, not random. It was a rhythm. Bang, bang, bang. Like someone sprinting down the hallway, kicking the metal doors closed one by one. The noise echoed so violently he almost dropped his mop. Without thinking, he bolted toward the sound, heart racing, ready to kitch whoever was messing around. But when he turned the corner, nothing. The hall was spotless. Every locker door was closed perfectly, lined up with eerie precision, not a single dent, not one out of place. He swore it looked too perfect, like someone had gone out of their way to stage it. He muttered to himself, "That's impossible! I heard it!" But there was no one there, no echoes anymore. Just him, standing in that long hallway under flickering fluorescent lights, trying to convince himself it was stress. Still, he pushed through the shift because what else could he do? But the night wasn't done with him. The final straw came when he was clocking out. He was crossing the main hall, dragging his tired feet across the freshly waxed floor, when he saw them. Footprints. Wet, clear, and very human. Bare feet. They started near the gym entrance and trailed down the hallway, glistening under the overhead lights. At first, he thought maybe he was hallucinating, but the prints were too sharp, too real, and they weren't fading, even though the floor had been polished dry only an hour before. He followed them carefully, one step at a time, until the trail led him all the way to the staff lounge. His stomach twisted. The prints didn't stop at the door. They went further. They pressed against the wall. And then they ended. Not at a doorway, not at a corner, just at a solid wall. Like whoever or whatever had made them had simply walked straight into it and vanished. That was enough. David backed away, muttering that he'd had enough for one night. He signed out, grabbed his jacket, and left the building without looking back. A week later, he turned in his keys. When his supervisor asked why, he didn't bother making excuses. He just said, "I'd rather clean literally anywhere else, even a hospital at night, than spend another midnight in this school." The creepy part? Years later, another custodian took the same position. And one evening, while chatting with a teacher, he mentioned something strange. He had heard a basketball bouncing in the gym after hours. He had followed a trail of wet, human-sized footprints that stopped against the wall. The exact same thing. The story spread quickly among the staff, but no one could explain it. Some laughed it off. Others refused to work late shifts alone. And maybe that's the scariest thing, because once you hear it, you realize the school doesn't just go quiet at night. It waits. And sometimes it reminds you that you aren't really alone on your shift. Some places never let you leave by yourself, no matter how much you want to.
This last one comes from a girl named Maria. Her high school carried an old story that every student eventually heard, whether they wanted to or not. Decades earlier, one of the school's most beloved teachers had passed away late at night while grading papers. The details were fuzzy, blurred by time and whispers. Some said it happened in the English classroom. Others swore it was in the teacher's lounge. Nobody could agree on the exact place, but the legend lived on. She never truly left. For Maria, it was just another exaggerated school myth. The kind of story upperclassmen tell freshmen to freak them out. But her opinion changed one night during her junior year. She was in the art room, working late on a project that had to be finished for a big presentation. It was about 9 p.m., long after most students and teachers had left. The hallways were dark. The vending machines buzzed in the distance, and the school felt different, quieter, heavier. That's when she noticed it, a faint sound drifting down the corridor. Humming. Not random, not chaotic. Soft, gentle, like someone absent-mindedly singing an old tune under their breath. At first, Maria thought maybe the janitor was playing music from her phone, but as she paused, she realized it wasn't music at all. It was definitely humming, and it was coming from the direction of the English wing. Her stomach tightened. She remembered the story. That was supposed to be the very place where the teacher had passed away decades before. Curiosity overruled her fear. She stepped into the hallway, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. The sound grew clearer with every step she took. It wasn't menacing. It was almost calming, like a lullaby. But the fact that it was echoing through a nearly empty school at night made it feel completely wrong. Finally, she stopped in front of the English classroom. The door stood slightly ajar, the crack glowing faintly with flickering light. She pushed it open a little more. Inside, she swore she saw someone. A figure seated at the teacher's desk, shoulders hunched, papers spread out in front. The outline looked like a woman, hair falling just past her shoulders. Relief rushed through Maria. "Oh, it's just a teacher finishing work." She called out softly, "Hello?" The figure didn't move. The humming continued, steady, like the sound hadn't been interrupted at all. Maria stepped closer, heart hammering now. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed and flickered. She raised her phone and switched on the flashlight. The beam swept across the desk, and her stomach dropped. There was no one in the chair. The desk, however, wasn't empty. Papers were scattered across it, essays marked up in red ink, notes scrawled in handwriting Maria didn't recognize. Her breath caught. She didn't wait to see more. She bolted, sprinting down the hallway. The eerie part? The humming didn't stay behind. It followed, not loud, but close enough that it felt like someone was trailing right behind her. She didn't stop until she shoved through the exit doors into the night air. And only then did the sound fade away. The next morning, Maria returned to the English classroom. Maybe, she thought, her mind had been playing tricks. Maybe a teacher had left those essays out. But when she stepped inside, the desk was spotless. No papers, no red ink, just a perfectly empty surface. She even asked her English teacher later if anyone had stayed late to grade. The teacher frowned and shook her head. No one uses that room at night. That's when Maria stopped doubting the legend. And she wasn't the only one. Over the years, other students shared similar stories. Some claimed to hear the same faint humming if they passed by the classroom after hours. Others said assignments left inside the room mysteriously came back with red markings and corrections in handwriting that no living teacher recognized. It wasn't just one rumor anymore. It was a pattern. Maria still remembers that night as the moment she went from skeptic to believer. She told her friends, "It's not a story to scare freshmen. She's still here, helping, watching, grading." And maybe that's the strangest part. The presence in the English classroom didn't feel threatening. It felt like she never stopped being a teacher, as if even death couldn't break her dedication to her students. To this day, students say if you leave an unfinished essay on that desk after dark, you might come back to find it neatly corrected with helpful notes scribbled in red ink. Whether that's comforting or terrifying depends on how you look at it. So yeah, schools aren't just about learning math, history, or writing essays. They're not only about pep rallies, sports, or graduation speeches. Sometimes They're places that hold on to memories a little too strongly. Memories of people who walked those hallways, left their mark, and maybe never really left at all. Think about it for a second. The locked room Hannah and Mia stumbled across, sealed up overnight like the school was trying to erase it. The custodian's midnight shift with bouncing basketballs and footprints that walked straight into a wall. Or Maria's English classroom, where humming and red ink appeared from nowhere, like a teacher who still refused to stop grading essays. Each story might sound unbelievable on its own, but together, they paint a picture that schools are more than just buildings. They're living time capsules. They remember, they whisper, and sometimes they reach back out. Before we wrap this up, I want to know what you think. Drop a comment down below and tell us which one of these stories got under your skin the most. Was it the hidden classroom with the scratching? The custodian's lonely night that felt way too crowded? Or the teacher who never stopped working even after everyone else had gone home? Your answers are always fun to read, and it's wild to see how different people react to the same story. And hey, if you've got your own creepy school story, don't keep it to yourself. Maybe it's something that happened when you stayed late for a club meeting, maybe it was detention gone weird, or maybe it's just a hallway you avoided because it gave you the chills. Send it to the email in the description. We'd love to share your story with the world. And who knows, you might end up in one of our next videos. All right, guys, that's it for today's ride through the darker side of school life. If you enjoyed it, do me a solid. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you turn on notifications so you'll never miss our weekly drops of true scary stories, urban legends, and unexplained events. Trust me, you don't want to be the one left in the dark when the next one comes out. Stick around, because the world is a lot stranger and scarier than it looks in the daylight.